All right, today is the day. And if you are one of those viewers who comes on and gets kind of cranky because I talk too much and not jump right into the work, well, you should probably just jump off this video right now because this video is going to be a lot of talking. Well, a couple of reasons. First off, we haven't gotten hardly anything done this week because I am into a crunch state where I have moved some things around, trying to reorganize, get some space. Building a car is not always building a car, it is living your life around that car as well. So we're going to take a look at some things I'm having to do in the shop to kind of make room and make better use of my space with some new machinery coming in. We're going to take a look at that. But also, I am going to make this video into a kind of a destination. I get a lot of people that ask the same questions over and over. And it's understandable because sometimes YouTube brings them in on a certain video and they haven't seen all the others and don't know the answers that might have been in those other videos. But instead of me typing over and over in the comments the answers to those questions, I thought I would just make a video with the answers to most of the common questions that get repeated. And then I could just point them back to this video. And this video will be the answer to those questions. So we're going to take a little tour around the shop, see what's going on in my space problems. And then we'll come back and do some answers. Now this machine has come into my shop. Used to be a inkjet printer. I am converting it to a 5-axis foam cutting CNC mill. But it is much larger than the original workbench that was sitting there that we worked off of and kind of encroaches on some space. So we are having to shift some things around. We also see off into this corner here, we have the new 3D printer that I'm building and some other machines. This is going to be kind of our machine center for CNC. Even though the original workbench is gone, this machine is going to serve as a workbench. As you can see, I've just put a piece of thin plywood on top of it, work off of it just as it is a workbench. And I'll just be able to pull that off when I have a project to cut by the CNC. Okay, off in one corner of the shop, I have this little miniature lathe, and it does pretty good at turning miniature parts. But when you step into some bigger pieces, now this piece is not that big. I found that even though it is smaller than my larger 4-jaw chuck on here, it just would not get hold of it. Just not quite the right size to grip that piece. And so it came to the dilemma. Typically, if I have something that's bigger than this lathe, I just send it off to a machine shop to have it done. But this time, I decided, nope, it is time to make a change, and here's the solution to that change. Okay, what we have here is a very large engine lathe, measuring just over 9 feet long, so it has just about a 5.5 foot base and a 14-inch throw, and I can be able to turn more on this thing than I ever dreamed I needed. Certainly more than I need to build a tiny little sports car. It is looks pretty rough, but I think it's in pretty good shape. Just needs to be cleaned up, de-rusted, degunked, and re-greased. The problem is, where is this going to go? It just adds to the dilemma of the shrinking and shrieking space here in the shop studio. So as I'm looking for space to rearrange things, I have these bins that I store parts in, wanting to have them easily accessible. So they're sitting right here against the wall in the studio. They are going to have to move, go up into the storage room, where it takes me a little bit more work to go dig through them and get some parts out, but that's okay. Like I said, making room for all the machinery is more important than having ease of access to some parts. Now here's what I'm talking about with bins full of parts. Here's one that I have in my office. This is a transfer case that I'm borrowing the viscous coupling out of, and a bunch of bearings, seals, and other parts that I've been collecting for my center differential. Like I said, wanted them here for easy access because I've been down here measuring and checking and measuring and checking just to make sure everything's right before I get some machine work done. But this is just going to have to go up into the storage room. So speaking of space, this is probably the most important space in the shop. This is where I actually sit and answer your comments. Of course, also the place where I do my designing, planning, and staging for all the things that I do, including the Arete project. And one of our viewers here has asked me how I manage all of my workflow and the things that I am trying to juggle. So like I said, you're looking at here a running list of things to accomplish on the Arete and some other shop projects. And I take that list and it translates to this board. You see all these pretty colored tags. They all have things that are in process, or I guess being staged to be in process, and kind of organize those in order how I'm going to do it. And I guess I can zoom in here and you can see there's some little magnets with some numbers on them. Magnets because I need to move those around. Sometimes I come out and there's a project that I cannot jump into. Like if you remember last week, I was going to do some welding and my son was actually in that room painting kitchen cabinets. So I had to shift gears. But this is the board planning for doing things. This video you're looking at right now is the 79th video I will be posting. And it would have been A52 if it was going to be the Arete project in the curated list, but I will not be putting this in the curated list. So it will not be A52, but just 79. Okay, here we are with our questions, and these are not going to be in any particular order, not the number of people asking it or the importance of the question, but we're just going to jump down a little list I have. And one of those is, why am I not building this car out of carbon fiber rather than fiberglass? Well, comes down very simply to one answer, and that is $17,000. Yep, that is what it would have cost me to have done this in carbon fiber. Actually, it would have cost me right around $22,000, but we're talking the difference between using the S-Glass and the carbon fiber. And the reason well, of course, the budget, but another thing is that building this prototype, I do not have the molds that are required to do vacuum forming or vacuum infusion. And that would be the only way that I would justify using that expensive material, is if I could process it correctly by using that methods. So since I don't have the molds for that, I don't have production molds, I just have these molds that I'm using for building a prototype. And the expense, that is the reason. And you will see that the price difference and the strength gained is only about 20% weight savings by using the carbon. And since I am not going after any kind of world records or in any kind of racing, there is no need to justify 20% for $17,000, especially when the budget is only $25,000. But that is another question. And it's a very common one, is how much is this project costing me? And I've mentioned that the budget for this was originally set at $25,000, but some things have come along that I really kind of wanted to incorporate into the car and thought I couldn't live without them. And so I've bought some things that have kind of jacked that price up. Probably going to be closer to $30,000, and that is for the materials and not my labor. If we charge myself for the labor, we probably just couldn't afford to do it anyway. Luckily, I work for myself for free. Now, tied in also to that idea of not having production molds and only using prototype molds is another question which is common, and that is, am I going to build more of these cards? Since I have the molds, are you going to build more? Well, the answer is, I don't know. But moving it into production is more based upon what I get and see in the world, not only in accepting of the car, but in the economic condition of the world. Whether we need a new supercar, I don't know. It is also common for me to get questions of people asking why the engine is sitting backwards. A very astute viewer might recognize that if you looked at that engine, you would be looking at it as if you were standing behind it when it would come out of a car. And that, of course, is because this car is going to be all-wheel drive. The engine is pointing towards the passenger compartment. The transmission will be seated right between the passenger and the driver, connected to a center differential or transfer case, whatever you want to call it. And that transfer case feeding through a chain will drive a drive line going back to the rear differential, and a set of gears will send another drive shaft forward to the front differential. So yes, it is backwards because it will be an all-wheel drive vehicle. And for you viewers out there who speak French and wonder why I am naming my car after the word stop in French, it is because you have misread the name. There is only one R, and that is erte or erte in Greek, rather than arte in French, which means stop. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing either one of those correctly. I believe the pronunciation for the Greek is arte, and we just say it around here, erte. But it means to achieve one's greatest potential. Now, in the Greek, that might mean achieving one's potential in the spiritual realm, but it also extends to just achieving one's greatest potential in everything that you do. And so I think that's a pretty appropriate name for the car, Arete, to achieve one's greatest potential. And like I said, if you have a little French Renault or something that's spelt with 2 R's, it means stop. Now, those who have worked with fiberglass before know it is very common to use a gel coat. And a lot of people ask me why I'm not using a gel coat, or if I used a gel coat, that they haven't noticed that process. Well, if you go back into the videos and you notice when we built the molds, we did apply an orange gel coat. And a gel coat is used to prevent print through, meaning when the resin shrinks up, you can see the fiberglass pattern in the surface of your finished product. So when you're using, and the process that we did use the gel coat so that our mold will have a glossier surface that didn't have the print through. But now that we're into production of the body parts, I am not using a gel coat because what I do is I use some very, very fine cloths that have a really small weave so that when that shrinkage occurs, you don't see as more dramatic as a print through. And I will also be going through and doing a post-production finish on the car, meaning that it'll be sanded, primer filled, and sanded again, and of course, many steps prepping it for paint. Whereas sometimes if you're going to produce a part with a gel coat, you would just want to pop it out of the mold, have that part ready to go. But like I said, we will be finishing it with some painting, pre-processing. So that is why we're not using gel coat on the epoxy body parts, but we did use the gel coat on the molds. I also get a lot of people that wonder why I would spend so much time, so much effort on a project like this. Now to answer that, I'd like to use the German philosopher Nietzsche. He had an idea, and I think it was kind of the basis for the movie Groundhog Day, if any of you have seen that. But the idea was this: if you were stuck in eternity doing the same thing every day, what would you choose to do? And so if you take that and extend that out, once you have decided what it is that you would do through eternity, why aren't you just doing that right now? Why would you not spend this first pre-80 years to jump in and start working on the thing that you would enjoy doing throughout all eternity? So now I don't say that building this car is the thing I want to do for all eternity, but it is the process of building the car, actually the process of solving problems, coming up with ideas and implementing them, and then creating them into a product. That is the thing that is interesting to me. That is the thing that I guess I wouldn't mind doing, being stuck in eternity, solving problems, building things, and being a creator. And with that in mind brings us to the very last question, which is the opposite of being a creator. At least the answer is the opposite of being a creator. But the question is, what am I going to do with that plug now? The first model that we built, that original full-size car in all of its glossy redness, what am I going to do with it? Well, this is the answer. Well, there you go. With the plug going out and the machines coming in, you see that we are having some changes, getting ready for the new year. Hopefully we can be a lot more productive, and hopefully we can get these robot slaves working away for us and bringing some accuracy and some productivity into our lives. Anyway, that's what we have for you today. Thanks for coming by, and come back. See us again.